Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're going to be reviewing the new My Dying Bride album titled The Ghost of Orion. So after a week of listening to this album, I'm going to take the floor and say that unfortunately this album was not doing much for me. Our problems last week involved, the album being too similar to itself. Just the pacing was the same, there was a bunch of pointless stuff, and unfortunately I kind of felt the same way. And even though I kind of liked Your Broken Shore back when we listened to it a week ago, but now I listen to it and it doesn't really do much for me. There's nothing about that song that's really gripping me other than I kind of remember the melody.
Yeah.
But that's really it. Like, a few of the melodies grip me, but that's it, like with this album. I find that older My Dying Bride, even the most recent album, before this one, had more interesting riffs that kind of kept you into it. It still had a lot of very, dark and sad themes,
Of course.
but it had something that would grab you. This album barely grabs me, and I feel like the only things that really grab me are the riffs in The Long Black Land and The Old Earth. Those are really the only things that actually kind of keep me engaged, but everything else has the same pacing, the same tempo. It's just too much of the same thing.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I feel like what are your thoughts on the atmosphere of the album? Even though you may agree that it might be redundant, perhaps, but I want to know what your thoughts on the atmosphere is.
Honestly, I don't feel like it really sets a good atmosphere. I think it tries, and I think other albums from My Dying Bride definitely do the job they're supposed to do as far as creating atmosphere goes and having those types of songs that evoke emotions of despair and anguish and things like that. This album didn't do that for me, and I didn't think that I don't think it'll do it for other people either, right? I don't think anybody's gonna listen to this and get put into a mood or put into a zone, which is basically what atmosphere is kind of supposed to do. It's supposed to get you in that mood, right? I don't think this really does the job. I feel like these guys dropped the ball on this album. Your Broken Shore is probably the best song on the album. I agree with your points. But it's still nothing really great. It's nothing that memorable. The more I listened to it, the less I liked it.
I was similar. Like, the more I listened to it, the magic of that song kind of just faded.
Yeah, and I think it's because it was the only song that really did stand out as kind of a good song. And so it kind of like, every time it came on, I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm going to enjoy this one. And then it kind of wore off pretty quick. I also will say, you also mentioned The Old Earth because of the riffing. The second half of that song is actually pretty good. It gets a little bit more energetic. It gets a little more stuff happening. You know what I mean? It just feels different than the other parts of the album. So I give a little bit of credit there. But man, this was honestly, it was difficult to listen to this album throughout the week. Tired of Tears is a song that started growing on me a little bit. I know I made a bit of a joke about it last week at the first impression video. But through listening to it throughout the week, it was growing on me a bit. I was starting to get into it and stuff like that. I was gravitating towards it. Then it just kind of fell flat again. Like, that's how I felt with a lot of this album. You kind of start maybe getting into something and hoping that something is gonna blossom, and then it falls flat. But you made a good point. You listen to any of their older work, especially like Feel the Misery, for example. Listen to the first song on Feel the Misery. That song alone kills this entire album, just murders it. And you'll see an example of the type of craftsmanship that this band is capable of, because that song's got a lot of stuff going for it, where these songs don't have much going for them at all. They're all very bland, very similar, very mundane, and I didn't enjoy it.
I mean, I will say one thing that really added to the atmosphere that I actually liked a lot from this album was the use of violin. Every single time I heard the violin, I loved how it was played. I loved what the guy was playing. I just thought it was amazing, and I wanted more of that, or more of things like that, instead of just this one drone going on. Like, the violin really added a lot of flavor to the album, and I think that's probably one of the highest points for it.
I agree, and I'll also add that I believe it's a female that plays violin in this band. But yeah, the violin is definitely the highlight of this band. Like, that's one of the reasons why I like this band. Because I like violin with my metal. I think it's a underutilized instrument in the genre, but I also am glad that not so many bands use it, because then it's special when it is used. So the violin definitely were amongst the higher points, And you know what, that's not even really saying much because you didn't really have to do much to outshine the guitars because the riffs are boring. You didn't have to do much to outshine the drums because the drums are plain. And you didn't have to do much to outshine the vocals because they're also plain. So even though the violin was a high point, it wasn't exactly mind-blowing or anything I wanted to like add to my playlist or anything like that. I mean, it was cool when it was there, but it was just a minor step above the rest of the crap that was on there.
Yeah, there really wasn't much of that violin, but every time it came on, like my head would turn like, ooh, yeah, there's that violin. And I really liked how that sounded. One thing, and I think I mentioned this last week, is that I think the mix of this album is really, really good. I think there's such a full sound from everything. There's such a deep sound. I forgot what song it was. It was one of the two songs that I ended up liking after a week, either The Long Black Land or The Old Earth, where a riff happened and then they just like drop on one.
Yeah.
And I love how big and open that was. Like sonically, it sounded awesome. I liked that. So I just kind of wish that the performance of this album was better so that we could appreciate the mix even more.
Yeah, there was definitely definitely a lot more they could have done, and it's unfortunate that they didn't. I mean, obviously they achieved what they wanted to achieve, but I guess for us, it didn't really hit the mark. But I think we should just get to ratings because I really don't have much else to say, unless you do.
I mean, there's one last thing I think might be worth discussing. Did any of the 3 interludes grow on you at all throughout the week?
Absolutely not. They didn't grow on me. Actually, they were just...
They just got worse.
They just passed by. Oh, they didn't get worse. When I listened to the album, I didn't really pay attention to what song was which song, and I mean, like, it all blended in so much that when it played, it just played through and it was over. And then I knew it was over when Your Broken Shore started again. And I was like, oh, here we go, the song I like. For the rest of it, I was like, oh, here we go. Oh, tired of tears, blah, 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 blah. The second half of The Old Earth, cool. And then, then Your Broken Shore starts again. There was a few key moments that I was kind of like, oh, this, oh, that. The rest of it, flat.
Well, the only one of those 3 that I kind of enjoyed at all was the title track. And even when I heard it throughout the week, I liked how it sounded. I just kind of liked the evil mood that it kind of had. But Your Woven Shore, I honestly cannot remember what it sounds like. Like, seriously, I'd have to literally just hear it again because I cannot.
It's got like female chanting and like some ambient.
And that's what the Solace has.
Noises.
Yeah. I guess they're both the same. Case in point, they're both the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just one of them is almost 6 minutes. Just awkward. But anyway, what do you rate this album?
3. That's it. 3. I'm not gonna say anything worse. This album's a 3.
Yeah, you know what? I like to be positive, but this is hard to do that for this album. I'll also give it a 3 because it doesn't really do much. There are good aspects to it.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like even My Dying Bride fans, like, would you really appreciate this if it, it just kind of takes everything about the band that's really interesting and then just
pulls it down,
throws it away?
Yeah, and honestly, we're trying to be objective. Like when we do these reviews, we listen to these albums for a week straight because we're trying to find objective things that we can come to you guys and be like, this was awesome, that was awesome, this was cool, that was cool.
But there's not much to say about this album.
I had nothing. I was so empty with positive things I could say in this review, and that's incredibly disappointing. I mean, I'm surprised I don't give it even a lower score than a 3. I guess maybe because it's still tolerable.
It has stuff. Like
if it's on the background, it kind of just plays, and then you'll have a couple parts that kind of jump out at you, and you'll go, "Oh yeah, this is all right." But
yeah, it's great as background music, but nothing
I wouldn't
more.
say great. I think it's decent as background music.
I guess maybe it's not too much noticeable, but it worked as background music for me.
Yeah,
I guess. Anyway, guys, we want to know what you guys think, so remember to comment in the comments below, and that's all we got for you today. Remember to like the video if you like it, subscribe to us as well. And check out our Spotify playlist in the description below and buy our shirts in the description below. I'm TV Fish.
And I'm Vile Self.
And we'll see you guys later.